Hey everybody, welcome back. So, since we're learning about boss-based extrude this week and making 3D objects, I want to go ahead and show you how to make yet another Lego. You're like, you've only had one video making Legos. That's true. I kind of expect you guys to be sending me lots of emails asking what Legos to make, but we're still getting to the beginning of the project, so I understand if you haven't really been working much on it. So, let's get right into it. Now, what I'm going to make this time is an angled Lego piece, okay? It's one of those pieces that has one stud and it goes angled down. You'll know what I mean in just a minute. And for this, I'm using the dimensions we got from last time. Now, when I'm actually making a piece, it's good to think about how I want it oriented. So when you build it, however you have it oriented when you first start out, it will stay oriented that way when you put it into an assembly later on. So for this one, just because of how my brain thinks, I'm going to make it right here. It doesn't really matter too much in the end. It's just going to make it simpler on you. Now, I said the angled Lego piece. You're like, what in the world do you think about, Dr. Kid? What is this talking about? Oop, didn't click the right spot. I'll show you. I'll give you an outline of it. So it goes up a little bit. There you go. It goes over. It's flat. Goes down. Where are you, little lines? There you are. And then it goes over again. And did I get that piece? I hate when this happens. Do you notice something that happened here? These two spots did not connect. That's one of the errors you'll run into a lot in SolidWorks, especially when you're connecting lines. If it doesn't suddenly shade in, that means that your lines are not connected. So I'm going to go ahead and connect those two lines. How? I'm going to grab the end of this one and drag it over until it connects. And boom! Now you see how it's colored in? That means that it's a completely closed contour. If it's not colored in, something went wrong. Okay. So from last time, we learned that one stud, the space that a stud takes up, well, that square is 5 units wide. So I'm going to start adding some dimensions here. Okay. That's 5 units. This one down here, this one will be 10 units. Okay, this piece right here, this will be 6 units. So these are all things I'm just using from Lego dimensions. A regular height Lego brick is 6 units tall. A one stud square, so the stud itself is 3 units wide, but the square it's on is 5 units wide. And if I had something that takes 2 studs of space, it'll be 10 units wide. And finally, to get the last little dimension here, this guy right here, you can tell if you just put a wall next to it, like if you take a Lego piece and you set the wall next to it, this will be 1 unit wide. There you go. So this is the basics of this Lego. Now you also notice it's really far off to the left. I really don't like that. I like to have everything on the origin. For some reason, it just did not want to start there. So I drag it over and now it's connected to the origin. Everything is fully defined. Okay, so this is looking good. I like it. And so now we're going to extrude it. How do we do that? Well, we're going to go to Features, Extrude Boss Base. We're going to learn about well, not all of these, but most of these buttons in here. So don't worry about that. We'll go through them as we go through the semester. Okay, now if it's 5 units in this direction, it's going to be 5 units in this direction, at least for a one stud guy. So I'm going to do 5 units. Okay, so this is looking more and more like a Lego. Now I do have an issue. I have an issue in the fact that I don't have a stud on the top, so I need to add a stud. So I'm going to click here. You can sketch on any flat surface so long as it is perfectly flat, it's not curved. I'm going to add a circle now. What's that circle for? It's for the stud. Now studs are always 3 units wide, so I'll make this 3 units wide. And they're also always centered. So I need to center this guy. How do I do that? Well, if it's 5 wide, then it means it's 2.5 from one side and 2.5 from the top. I did pretty good in centering it just from eyeballing it. Let's see how I did on this one. Oop, not nearly as good there. Okay, this is looking pretty good now. I like it. So now I'm going to go to Features, Extrude Boss Base once more, and I'm going to go up 1 unit. It always defaults to whatever you did last. So I did 5 last, and so now we're doing 1. You hear yelling in the distance? That's my son. I'm at home today. Okay, so this is looking really, really good. I like it a lot. Now, you might be noticing that I'm moving my piece around like this, rotating it, and having a pretty easy time of it. Now, how am I doing that? I'm just doing the clicking the scroll wheel. If I use the scroll wheel and I go back and forth, I can zoom in. As note, you zoom in at wherever you're pointing at. If I click the scroll wheel and then move around my mouse, I will begin to rotate my piece. If I then hold Control and do that same thing, I'll pan. And I think if I do Shift in something, I'll zoom, and Alt in something, yes. So each of them does something, but I'm always clicking the scroll wheel to make any of those things happen. You're like, but what if I don't have a scroll wheel? Well, too bad, your life is hard for you. I'm kidding. You can right click and you can choose what you're doing. So I can choose to roll, pan, rotate, and it will just do that automatically for me. But I like using just a scroll wheel to do it. It's a lot easier. Now, this Lego looks really nice on the surface, but we need to go underneath and realize, wait a minute, it's not hollow. So just like I showed you last video, we're going to shell. I'm going to make this 1 unit wide, and I'll have most of my thing looking really, really nice. It is still missing one last detail. There needs to be a little peg right here in the middle. So I'm going to sketch here on the bottom, and well, you're going to see an issue we run into fairly soon. So I'm going to add in my circle. How big is my circle supposed to be? Well, I can show you. What's happening is you have that little circle in the middle because you have 2 pegs, one on the top and one on the bottom. And those pegs, whoa, I believe my mouse just died. It did, that's okay. I have my keyboard mouse. There we go. So one on the top and one on the bottom have to touch walls on all 4 sides. So this circle right here on the bottom, it's touching the left wall, the right wall, and the bottom wall. It needs to be touching a peg in the middle to support it. And the same for this top one. So now what I'm going to do is make sure this top one is perfectly touching the edges here. So how do I do that? I do it by adding relations. If you haven't watched that video yet, you really need to watch it because relations are key in SolidWorks. So I'm going to go over here, click on tangent, and then I'm going to do the same thing again. Clicking that edge, and then making it tangent once more. And I've got to do it a 3rd time because life is hard. I should have just added a dimension here, but we all make mistakes. Tangent. Okay, perfect. And I'll make this guy tangent as well, and we'll have a great day. Glorious. Now this circle in the middle is supposed to be centered between these 2 circles, so perfectly in line, and also just touching them at one point. Now, because I don't need to make anything with these 2 circles, I'm going to select them and then make them for construction. I do that by clicking this little checkbox here. You see that it turns it from being a solid line to a dotted line, and it goes from being a filled in, colored in circle to just being a dotted line circle. That's just telling you that SolidWorks knows this is not for building anything, this is just for helping us with dimensions and stuff. Okay? I'm not actually trying to use this to make a feature, I'm only using it to try to position other features. So with that, I'm going to add some more relations. I'm going to make sure this peg that I'm about to make is going to be perfectly centered, so I make it vertical. And I'm going to say that it's tangent. I love tangent, it's one of my favorite relations. And I go over here, once again, there's lots of options. It will guess what you want to do, that's why it's always in bold, but don't click that if you don't want it to be that. And then finally I have to make sure it's tangent to the bottom one as well. And it's telling me I need to save my work. Thank you, SolidWorks. I don't plan on saving this because I'm not going to use it again after this. Okay. So this looks pretty good. I like it. Now, once again, I lost my mouse, and so I can't actually choose to rotate this anymore. So I'm going to have to go into right-click, go to Zoom, Pan, Rotate, and click on Rotate View. That's just so I can see this a little bit better. Okay, it's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to go to Features, Extrude Boss Base. Now, here's the thing. If I go to Blind and I try to extrude, Because I have an angled surface right here, let's go ahead and see if I can zoom pan, rotate view. Since I have an angled surface, when it begins to extrude, I can just show you. If I were to try to go all the way, let's see, I'm going to do it this way. I could do it, but when I get to the top, it's going to actually pop out. You see that? So I really don't want to do that. I don't want it to pop out of the surface because then I'll have to cut that off. I can fix it. Why do more of the work than I need to? So there's other things I can do though. I can do up to next. Up to next is magic. It didn't used to exist and I'm so glad they introduced it. All it does is simply say, keep on extruding until you smack into something. So you can actually see that surface right there. That's the end. So on the angled surface, it stops at an angle. On the flat surface, it stops at a flat place. And this saves me time of having to try to cut it off or fix it later. So I did it. Green checkbox looks good. And just because I feel like it, I'm going to show you how to add a material. I'll do this later in other videos, but for like real. So if I want to add a material, there's various ways to do it. One, I can just right click and you look for the little disco ball here, okay? So you see this little disco ball? I can go to the drop down box and I can choose what I'm changing the material of, either just that face, that extrusion, the whole body, or the entire part. I want the entire part. And so then I go over here to appearance. And at first it's just colors. You can do just colors, but if you really want to be like super accurate, and like even get like masses and things like that, you go to appearances, you drop down box, go to plastic, and you choose what kind of plastic you have. Is it low gloss? Which some Legos are. Medium gloss? I think low gloss probably matches Legos better. And I can choose any of these. And you're like, it doesn't really look that different. It'll look different later. You can actually make a photorealistic view if you want to. And you can then change that color if you wanted to as well. So it can be any color you want. Okay, well, that looks good enough to me. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope this helps you, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.